Okay, so I'm going to do another one of these page one critiques. Hopefully won't be interrupted. My wife's gone out. The robot cleaner is rampaging downstairs, but I don't think it's picked up on the microphone. And the only possible other thing is that I did packaged up a whole bunch of books and prizes for the AI art contest and for my monthly Patreon giveaway. And the Royal Mail now insist on coming and collecting those from your house. So if the front door goes, I'm just going to leave you and give them those packages. This is the fourth, I think, one of the old set of page ones that were sent in to me, which I've been interspersing with page ones from well-known books. So let's just get on with it. And just a reminder, I picked these out of a whole, out of several hundred, generally tending to be ones where I had plenty of things to say, so hopefully constructive. Here's the disclaimers, and we get to the bit where I just read the thing. It's called The Meeting, and it was by James Shoemaker, and it's from a book called City of Suns, which may or may not now be published. The Meeting. The errant wind descends the mountaintop. It pushes west headlong towards the flatland and the plains of the southern continent, Panotia. It collects the moisture on the upward journey from the great river, dislodging droplets so that they fall pit-pat to the floodplain below. Turning north and back east, the wind descends into the wooden city, upsetting hair and cloth of smithic merchants and pilgrims. It careens through the portal called Westgate. It moves more quickly now, encouraged by urban heat, up the east-west artery of the city and past the great intersection. Suddenly the wind bursts against the body of a man, all its energy dispersed around his cloaked impediment. The air chills. Dacra Gandaris shivers and clutches the lapels of his cloak. It is unusually cold for an early spring month. He pulls his hood up around his face and walks briskly towards the river. The paving stones outside the south entrance of Woodhall give way to trodden dirt along the Deco Manor. He lifts his knees higher to encourage the blood and warmth into his legs. The dagger in his trousers rubs against his hip. A small leather sheath protects the blade. The weapon makes Dacra feel more at ease with the upcoming meeting, as though its mere presence is protection enough. Though he has been assured that he will be dealing with professionals of the utmost caliber, he is not foolish enough to arrive unarmed. The Deco Manor is crowded and unusually frenzied. Guilders are setting up banners with their heraldry above woven awnings and market stalls. Two merchants argue over a row of mud brick amphorae that separate their plots. Jailers wearing punitive expressions and jailers wear punitive expressions and keep their pike tips lowered at a threatening angle. The upcoming Venrashu festival has set everyone on edge, including Dacra. He turns south into the 7th district of the 2nd quarter. The wind abates in the narrower street. Dacra follows it as it curves towards the 7th second gardens. The dagger is chafing his hip bone, but he makes no move to correct it. He follows an alley south and stops at the sunken staircase that leads down into an unassuming door cut out of a wood plank building. In the lunette above the door is the name BB. The letters are carved without flourish, as though they were an afterthought. Dacro enters without knocking. It is a tavern, windowless. There are no patrons. The only occupant besides Dacra is a pretty bartender who glances at him for only a second before she turns away to wipe out a wooden carafe. The empty tables are all lit with beeswax candles, and a tallow lantern is suspended above, burning emphatically. Dacra crosses over to a high-backed booth against the far wall and sits down. He is early. So there we have it, page one. So it starts with this quite lengthy description of the wind, and I mentioned in previous critiques about the dark and stormy night syndrome. It's not a good idea to open with the weather in general. It's overdone and it's not very interesting. In this sense, we are following the wind in, and it's got this sort of Forrest Gump. Was it a leaf in his in the opening to that film? And there's various track the bullet scenes in films and music videos. So there's a bit more to it, but still, for my mind, way too much is said about this wind, and it's not particularly effective. You know, if like we just critiqued Lanny Taylor's first page, if you had Lanny Taylor's prose skills, maybe, just maybe, you could interest me in this wind, because he'd be really just showing off and showing me how good your prose is and enticing me into the book. But this isn't at that level. And we're just hearing about the water cycle, basically, collecting moisture and dropping it on. It's not very interesting. It's not going to grab anyone just hearing how rain works. Basically, there's a couple of world building things dropped in there, the name of the continent and some Smithic merchants, but really there's not enough going on here. It's not doing enough work. It's too generic. And we're still talking about the wind. We're going up some intersection, and suddenly we hit a man. Well, okay, we probably should have started with this man if he's interesting. The air chills. I'm not sure why the air would chill when it hit the man. Maybe it chills him, but then that's not very well written. It's just a bit confusing. So, it's not a brilliant first line, but this could be the first line. If we started with Dacre Gandra shivered and clutched the lapels of his cloak, we would have lost basically nothing. I've said here, whinging about two name introductions. When you give someone's full name, it's very formal. If you're deep in someone's point of view, you don't really want that formality. So it would be better, generally speaking, I would have said, to use Dacris, or sorry, Dacra. So I've said there that when this lands on the you've got to imagine how it hits a reader, but you also, if you're a new author, you have to imagine how it hits the literary agent. If you're hoping to go the traditional path, you're going to send this manuscript into the offices of a literary agent, or quite a few if you spread your net widely, and they're going to pick it up, and they're going to give you almost no time. They've got hundreds of these things coming in a week, and they're just looking for an excuse to push it to one side. They are wanting to be hooked from line one, and you cannot give them an excuse to put your book down. And this opening would give an agent a lot of excuses. An agent would have to have a pretty boring day to want to forge on in the hope that it would get good. And that's why I'm sort of focusing on the page one. Yes, you need to hook the reader, because in the modern world, there's so many distractions that if you don't hook your reader early on, you're lost. But beyond that, if you want to actually get a publishing deal, you need to hook an agent, and then you need to hook the editor that the agent sends the manuscript to, and both of those people will be overwhelmed with manuscripts and just literally be looking for reasons to push them aside. What's your unique selling point? I don't like to talk about writing. It's an art form in purely commercial terms, but there is a point here. Why is your book different from all the others that person is considering? And if you're open in a generic style, then you're not doing a very good job at convincing them that it's unique. I think this book is written in the present tense. That's basically the only unusual thing about it so far. It's unusually cold for an early spring month. We are quite far into this page one now, and we're still talking about the weather, and I still don't care about it. He pulls his hood up around his face and walks off. I think I suppose you could pull your hood up. So talking about the trodden dirt in one street, and he's lifting his knees higher to encourage blood and warmth. It's slow and it's dull. It's not selling the thing to me. It's nice to have some detail. Don't get me wrong on that. But this is probably the wrong sort of detail. The dagger in his trousers rubs against his hip. That's the right sort of detail. That is earning its keep because that's unusual. It's rubbing against his hip, so it's telling us in an efficient manner that he doesn't normally have a dagger on him. So he's expecting some trouble or violence. We have threat, we have attention. That is literally line 2 after we meet our guy. Him having an unaccustomed dagger with him is line 2, and all the rest can go hang as far as I'm concerned. But then immediately we move back into things I don't care about. It's got a leather sheath on it. It's enough for me to know he's got a dagger. I don't need to know the details of it. He's, as said there, somewhat snarkily. I expect he's wearing trousers and shoes as well. We don't need to be told about those. And we don't really need to be told about the dagger being in a scabbard. If there was something unusual about it, if it was not in a scabbard and was in danger of cutting his leg, or if it was sticky with fresh blood or something, then tell us about that. But don't tell us about things that are expected. Then we go on. This is decent because it says the weapon makes Dacre feel more at ease. Okay, so we're in the point of view. We're getting his feelings about things. That's good. And then we're talking about where he's going and what he's expecting. Speculation. You want your POV to have opinions, feelings. Given some there. We want the POV to speculate about his problems. The problem is that there might be some danger in this upcoming meeting, and he's speculating about it. That's good. So we would keep that. We get some stuff about the marketplace, and okay, I'm not wholly against this sort of thing. If it's building up atmosphere and whatnot, fine. 2 merchants arguing over a row of mud brick amphora. I'm not sure what a mud brick amphora is, but maybe that's a typo. Then we've got these jailers wearing punitive expressions. So there's not been any mention of a jail before, and there isn't a mention of a jail afterwards. So it seems a bit sort of weird to have these jailers in the street. And the pikes aren't really the weapon of a jailer, are they? Clubs or something short, but a pike gets stuck on the bars. Okay, now we've got a festival. That's a bit of world building. That's fine. And even this stuff like the detail of turning down the 7th Street into the 2nd quarter in moderation, that's fine too. That's giving us a feeling for the way this place is structured and the level of his knowledge and whatnot. We're still talking about the wind. A bit of confusion where he talks about the wind and then he says it follows it as it curves. Is he following the street? I think he is, but the grammar there makes it imply that he's following the wind. Talk about the dagger again. I guess it's good to have a reminder of the dagger, seeing as it's the hinge point of the only tension so far. But it's generally speaking good to tell us about things that the person does do rather than things that he doesn't do. So the fact he makes no move to correct it. Okay, so we follow on. We come to an unassuming door. The BB is carved without a flourish, as if it was an afterthought. If it's an unassuming door, then you wouldn't expect a flourish, but okay. He enters without knocking. It's a windowless tavern. No patrons. Occupant is a pretty bartender who glances at him and then goes. Wood's used a lot in here. Pretty is a very blah adjective. Why is she pretty? Why is she pretty to him? That then brings the point of view in. So it's nice to involve him. If she had, I don't know, the red hair that reminded him of, or if she was, very slim or very fat, or something that specifically appeals to him and he considers pretty, then that would tell us something about both of them. It's always good to get the description working harder to reflect both on the person looking and the thing that they're looking at. So we've got a bit of pinpoint detail here, which I'm always banging on about, which is good. The beeswax candles and the BB was also a bit of detail that those things center you on the location, make it feel unique, and therefore make it feel more real. I'm not actually sure beeswax is, it sounds like a really expensive thing to burn in a candle, but fine, you know, maybe there's an excess of bees in this place, but the point is that the specificity is good, as opposed to the generic pretty. But yeah, again, try and make it the things that he notices, give him a reason to notice them, and then therefore involve the point of view. Like, does he care about the illumination? Is he worried someone might be hiding in the shadows? Does he have a particular interest in candles or bees, or make him notice things that are important to him, and then that will make them work harder. And that's me finished on that. So I've said here that I've put down a lot of red ink, but actually the writing itself is pretty solid on a line by line basis. It's just, I feel, focusing on the wrong sort of things for page one in the majority. Present tense, a lot of people, readers, say they don't like present tense, and that will be an instant turn off for them. So if you're going to use it, you have to make sure that you are milking it for all the advantages that it has. The truth is that I feel that when people read present tense, after a few pages, they rapidly stop noticing it anyway. So their complaints about it are largely spurious. But some of the powers of present tense are that it brings an immediacy to the writing, and therefore you should, certainly on page one, if you're going to use present tense, maybe take advantage of that and have some sort of action that makes that immediacy in your face. But that's not here. This page, it just basically has a very mild level of tension. We get a character. We don't really learn anything about that person apart from they're going to a meeting and they've got a dagger with them. And we don't actually get to meet the person. He's early. He's in an empty tavern. So really, there's not a lot going on in this page one, and I would say that the book that follows probably deserves a better page one. That it should be maybe most of this, in my opinion, erased and replaced by something that draws us into the action more rapidly. Certainly in the 80s and the 70s, you would get lots of books that had this sort of slow meandering entry, and they turned out to be good books, some of them, and they sold well. But I feel the readership has largely moved on. But if your book is a slow and meandering book, then I suppose if you write a page one like this, then you are at least letting the people know what they're in for. But I've said my piece. You guys, you may think this is a great page one. There's a comment section under the YouTube, so if so, tell me why, and we can have a debate about it. And I'm going to turn it off. Hopefully this is going to be one of my shorter videos, because I think I do tend to waffle on rather too much. No, I'm still just waffling on as I hunt for the button that's going to turn you off. Thanks for listening.